Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to interview Amanda. So, Amanda, welcome.
Hi.
So Amanda, can you tell us your full type, please?
Yeah, so I'm double masculine, Te-Ni BS, sleep, play, consume.
All right, and then so you got your type back long time ago, and then recently you got retyped. I think you were Blast Play originally, and then you became Blast Sleep.
Yep.
Um, can you share what did you think and how did you feel when you got your original type, and then when you got retyped, just recently?
Yeah. So when I got my type originally, I kind of like it really surprised me, honestly, just like weirdly, it was actually the double masculine part that was like the most surprising. But like, um, after a while I could see that, and then that didn't seem so shocking. The blast play is known as crackhead energy and stuff, and so didn't ever really relate to like crackhead energy. um but I just thought, we'll just like try it on, and hopefully it makes sense, over time. And the every time anybody asked me about my type, that was the one coin, the blast versus sleep coin, was the one that I was like not 100% sure on, So it makes more sense now. Um, but yeah, I tried to like make it work before, you know. I guess it didn't really work because nobody else in the community was really fooled. Everybody seems to think blast sleep makes more sense. So
And then when you got retyped, how did you feel? Did you feel like a sense of relief? They're like, oh, this makes more sense.
yeah, it was interesting because for a minute there I just kind of like had like this self-doubt of like I'm gonna like ask them about it and they're just gonna tell me no, you're blessed play, and then it's just gonna be like I'm just gonna feel really dumb or whatever. But then yeah, it came back blessed sleep and I was like, oh yeah, and then there was this like weird sense of relief I wasn't really expecting to have, but yeah, it was like, oh okay, now everything makes sense. It's all right now.
Do you think that when you originally got typed as Blast Play, um, that they type you as that type because your play is double masculine, so it came like super strong and but yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. If you have the two animals in the middle are kind of, a little bit more evened out too, especially because, you know, um, I have double activated blast first, so the second animal's only single activated, so they're fairly close. You know, and then you take the third one, make it double masculine, the second one make it double feminine. It's going to be kind of hard to like tell which one's which, but yeah, so I think that might have had something to do with it. But I also, when I did my first video, I did it right after work when I was like kind of like, I don't know if you relate to this at all, but sometimes like when I get off work, I kind of get this like little after work high where I'm like, oh yeah, now I can do what I want to do. And like, so I get like, it's like, a dopamine release or whatever that like kind of like gives me a little high. And so I like had a little more energy when I was doing my video. So
It
I wonder if that kind of also, had something to do with it. But
it feels like it's kind of like what happens to Dave, because he says that he gets like super crackhead energetic at the end of the day because he's plays third. Uh,
ah,
but like for me, I'm like play blast, right? So I'm like crackhead mode. Like right now, like when I first started talking to you, you're probably like, oh God, this guy's definitely a crackhead. Because like, but yeah, but like at the end of the day, that's when my consumer sleep kicks in and I become mopey. And when my
ah.
girlfriend, she's like INTJ jumper, sleep consume, play blast. So at the end of the day, she becomes crackhead like, and I'm like, oh, there's so much energy, like so it's like yeah, so I think it does like matter where your thing like stacks. So maybe like at the early on in the day you're more mellowed out and then you're like
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It takes me a little bit of time to ramp up a little.
Let's go over your parts. Let's start with blast. Your blast is NITE. How do you personally experience that NT blast double activated?
Yeah. Let's see. Well, okay, so I'll notice that sometimes this. I mean, I guess this is partly being consumed less, but that's what makes it double activated blast. But but I'll notice this sometimes, like when I'm chatting in VCs or whatever, like somebody will say something and it like triggers like sort of a thought in my head, and like I just kind of like want to like follow that sort of like theorizing down this like rabbit hole, and so then it's like I'll kind of just stop listening and like tune everybody out for a minute while I'm like block banging in my head this thing out, and I don't realize till like two sentences later, and then I'm like, oh, I should probably listen. So yeah, that was one thing I was thinking about recently. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to like see your first animal in like your main functions at work. So you're like doing them all the time.
Your boss is NT, so do you like to provide solutions to people's problems? Because NT is like problem solving, right?
Yeah, yeah, sometimes yeah. I did that to somebody recently. I forget who now, um but they were talking about something, and then I like was like, oh yeah, I heard about this one thing, and like provided them like the solution, and then I like realized they weren't really asking for a solution, so I was like, oh yeah, well sorry, but like here's a solution in case you want it.
Do you ever get tripped up by that? Because sometimes, when you talk to people, like you can't tell if they're looking for a solution or just they're just trying to vent, So
Right.
you always have like that, confusion. It's like like especially as a DE, you're like, oh, I want to help this person, but do they need a solution or they just want me to hear them out, So
Right, yeah, so yeah, occasionally that will be kind of tricky. I thankfully have heard enough about that sort of thing of like, sometimes people just need to vent and you just need to listen or whatever. So I think I'm not like too bad about it anymore. But yeah, I would be one of those people, at least at certain points in my life, who've been one of those people that's kind of like, why are you complaining to me if you don't want to solve the problem? You know,
that's funny.
it's block finger extreme.
Yeah. So your new savior animal, or always has been, but
Right.
but has been fixed, essentially, is sleep above play. Your sleep, as you mentioned earlier, is double feminine. It's NF, and sleep is also an IP animal. So it's kind of interesting because you're like an EJ, but like, what if your savior is an IP animal? So you have like this inner contradiction that's like present at any given time. Although your sleep is double feminine, so it would feel very different. Um, how do you personally experience that double feminine NF play?
Enough sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
Um,
NFC. Thanks for a correction. Yes, yeah,
yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like it's something that's really hard to explain, maybe because it's double feminine. I don't know. Um, I feel like NF is something that's sometimes hard to explain and then make it double feminine. Yay. Okay. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't feel like I'm doing anything too weird, like for myself personally. Like I know it's like slightly contradictory as like a DI animal being an EJ, but it doesn't and maybe this is because it's double feminine, it doesn't feel like too like demanding or anything. Um so yeah, like I feel like there's actually more of a like a demanding nature to like my play, where like if somebody asks me to do something, um then it's like I don't I won't like go out of my way to be doing play all day or whatever, but like at the same time, like if it seems like a reasonable request or something, then I want to help. Like it would be really hard to say no. But and so in that way that feels more demanding to me than like doing enough sleep.
Also, earlier you said that you were initially surprised that you were double masculine. Were you surprised because if you look at your actual real animals now, your sleep is double feminine and your blast is like half masculine, half feminine. So there's like more feminine polarity on the front end than the back end. So you probably feel more feminine because that's like in the front end. Do you feel like that's the case for you? Why it was surprising? Because that's kind of
Yeah, I feel okay, yeah. So like I feel like that like you're describing it, that would have been a more what do they call it? Like the T-Rex EJ sort of thing. Like I feel like there's a lot more like the T-Rex syndrome with when you have like blast play as opposed to blast sleep. And so yeah, it does like it makes more sense to me because I didn't, necessarily see myself as being like that, like I don't know, overbearing or whatever, for lack of a better word. But being consumed less, can I see myself accurately? I don't know, but so that's why I just kind of went with it. But anyways, to your point though, like I do think that at least as far as the feedback I've gotten, that the double feminine in a sleep second is making more sense as far as I'm not to other people. The feedback I've been getting is that I'm not coming across as overly like aggressive or punchy, up front.
Right. It's kind of like your type is similar to Michael Jackson because he's sleep, blast, play, consume, double masculine, and then you're like, this guy's double masculine. Are you kidding me? And then
Right. Yeah, that is kind of interesting.
but then you watch
I
him
never
dance,
thought about that.
and you
Sorry,
watch him
was it?
dance. He's like, and then you watch him dance, and he's like really
Right,
aggressive when he's dancing, you know. So
right. Yeah, I guess
yeah,
so. Yeah. I
yeah,
never thought about his dancing being aggressive, but yeah, now like thinking about that, that's interesting.
yeah. Um, well, his dancing is good.
Yeah.
So, but there's like that, he's like hip thrusting really aggressively, and his movements are very like strong and fast. They're not like
Yeah.
flowy, So
Yeah, more
uh,
choppy or whatever.
yeah, exactly. Um, um, I have another question for your NF sleep. So I noticed everyone that has NF sleep have some kind of code that they adhere to. Do you have any NF code that you adhere to? Like I'll like usually it comes in the form of a quote or something. Like I'll give you some example. Like Kamala Harris, fellow ENTJ. Her thing is be joyful warriors. Because maybe I think she realizes that TE is harsh, so you can like have fun while
Yeah.
doing the TE. Like doing like the warrior work for like the tribe and stuff. Like Steve Jobs is like be curious, be foolish, which I think is a very growth mindset NF code because it's like, he's an IJ, he's close-minded, so being curious means let's go explore, and be foolish means like let the chaos come in. That's how I interpret it at least.
Okay.
Jocko Willink is like discipline equals freedom for the EPs. So do you have any particular quote that you follow or code or anything?
Um, gosh. I hmm. Like I don't have a specific like quote. Um, I know there are a lot of little like nuggets, sort of like that I've heard over the years that I'm like, oh, that's good, and kind of like, you know, try to like live by certain standards or whatever. Like, um, one of my things is like, integrity, not being hypocritical, like, just uh, if I say I'm gonna do something, like I better do it, like just kind of trying to maintain um I don't know. I guess integrity is the best word that I can think to use for that.
Do you think you don't have a particular code besides integrity because your sleep is double feminine, so it changes all the time? So just when you lock into something, you're like, oh, but this other one is also resonating with me.
Um, I don't know. That's I'm not sure about that. And maybe that's what it is. I feel like it's more of just looking at things in a slightly different way as I learn and, grow older. So I see it as just kind of like more evolving my standards and my, uh sort of moral compass or whatever.
So because you have sleep as a savior, Dave told me that sleep is also correlated with prioritizing, um, especially like if it's NIFI, it's planning on how you're gonna feel in the future. So there's almost like a future projection on how you're gonna feel when stuff happens, just to prepare yourself emotionally. I think it's kind of weird, but whatever. Everyone's type is different. I see my girlfriend doing this all the time. Like she's like projecting to the future, like all the bad things are gonna happen, and she'll like prepare herself emotionally. But then the bad thing is like if that thing doesn't happen the way she pictured it, it's gonna mess things up because it's linear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you personally experience your NIFI, future projecting, preparing yourself emotionally for something that's gonna happen in the future, or and as well as prioritizing, what's the most important thing to do?
Yeah. So I feel like it's not too different from like how most people with NF sleep would explain it. Pretty much the same. The I do that where I will kind of try to like emotionally brace myself ahead of time, like by considering like, oh, this is gonna happen sooner or later. I guess I better like actually confront this like reality and like prepare myself because I can't imagine being like blindsided by this, like how horrible that would be. So yeah, I don't I can't think of a way in which it really differs from how I've heard it explained.
Gotcha. And NF is also correlated with like the vibe. Now your NF is sleep, so my question then is, do you feel like for the people that's the most important to you in your life, can you read like the vibe of like your interaction with them, when emotions are not going well? Can you like read that? Dave always talks about like him and Shan, like he'll make Shan talk about their problems or feelings, and while Shan trying to block bang, he's like, nope, like we need to talk about this feelings thing right now. It's like because the sleep is high, right? And it's
Hmm.
NF. So
Yeah.
do you feel like that happens to you in any way? Because you do have it second. I know it's double feminine, so it's gonna be very gentle, but
Hmm.
can you sense the vibe of the people that's important to you? And also, yeah, what's your take on that?
Um, so I'm not like 100% vibe blind, but I don't know how good I am at it either. I would say that's something I still have not fully figured out because I feel like it's a little bit random as to whether I'm reading the vibe properly or not. Um, so yeah, a little bit of give and take on that. Um, I think like I said, I'm not totally vibe blind. Like there are times where I'm like, yeah, definitely picking up on that,
Yeah.
like bright red flashing lights. But yeah, but then some other times, I'll, learn after the fact that, you know, some vibe was off and I didn't catch it. So
Yeah, that makes sense. It's also double feminine, I guess. So you're not sure if that's like what you're picking up is the correct thing. Like I have double
yeah,
feminine NT play, so oftentimes I'm like, I'm not sure this is the right solution, even though it's like double activated.
yeah.
Anyways, let's go to your next animal play, double masculine. So it's kind of like you have like a crazy middle um animals there. They're balanced because it's sleep and play, but one is
Mhm.
like double feminine, one's double masculine. So what's going on there for you when like this? What does a swing look like?
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. I feel like what I can like a little example I can think of is just like when I'll just be sitting at my computer doing, whatever, just relaxing, vibing, whatever. And then like my mom will like come in and like ask me to do something. And then I just like I get this like instant like rage. I'm like, no, why are you interrupting me right now? Like, and yeah, so it definitely has come out like that a lot. And that's why I knew that like that I was definitely like had some kind of strong double masculine punchiness going on somewhere. Like I did relate to that in some way. But finding out, oh, it's a demon state reaction thing. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Yeah. Um so yeah, I didn't necessarily catch that it was a demon up front, when I first got typed. But now I'm like, the more I think about it, okay, that actually does still fit. Like, yeah, it's still there and it's in a demon state.
Your play is ST, so SETE.
Mhm.
It's like getting things done, and because it's play, it's collaborative. Do you enjoy that tribe collaboration when you're like working and stuff, like to you know do things together, like like let's say like setting up tables or doing work at whatever your work is, do you enjoy that back and forth collaboration?
Um, so it depends on the thing. There are some things I would rather just do alone. It like depends on how much I personally care about it. And then there are like um when it's not necessarily work, like games. I do enjoy like playing games with other people. And like I used to play League of Legends. So as far as like um team games, um one of my favorite things was just like whenever I'd have a good game where our whole team was working together smoothly, like the machine working together, all these people working together is like this, you know, smooth machine. So that was like one of the like funnest things to me. So I think that that's like where I could see that. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Your play is third. Do you feel like you have trouble going back and forth with people because you're blast sleep, right? So like the higher the play is, the faster the ping pong is between like other people. Do you feel like you're not as fast, especially when you're talking to people who are like higher in the play department,
Yeah, that was something that I did kind of subconsciously was like, that's a little off, a little odd, when I got the blast play the first time. I was like, I don't feel like I'm that good at like, like I call it quick on your feet. Like to me, save your place, quick on your feet. Um, and I've never really been good at being quick on my feet, at least not in my opinion. I can see how I'm better at it than other people, for sure, like certain people. But yeah, I just look at other like skibs and stuff that are really good at it, and I'm just like, how do you do this? Yeah. So.
yeah, you can definitely tell the difference when someone has savior play and like demon play. Like I remember I had a panel interview with individuals um I remember I did an all IJ panel interview. I remember Lijo was just like so quick with her play, and I'm like, oh my god, yeah, compared to like someone that had it in a demon state. I was like, oh, so that you can even see it like the moment that someone has savior play, there's just like a level of smoothness to it. Like when you
Mhm.
talk to the tribe, it just feels like natural, like back and forth, back and forth. There's like I don't know how to describe it. It's just like a level of smoothness to it. But yours is double masculine though, so um people use the word aggression, but I'm going to use the word confidence. Do you feel
Mhm.
like you have a sense of confidence of what's going to work for the tribe in terms of like what they need?
Um, I haven't thought about it in those terms before, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. Um, what they need in general, like what they need in the moment for the conversation, or
It could be a whole host of things. Sorry, I'm like lead intuitive, so so are you, so it's okay. So anyways,
yeah.
um, no, I mean like whether that be let's say someone in your house, you know maybe someone's like trying to build something in I don't know, like a furniture, like IKEA or whatever, and then like they need help with it, and you're like,
Hmm.
this is how you do it. Obviously you have consumers not, you're not gonna read a manual, but like like but like
Yeah.
that kind of idea, where like someone needs help and you feel this confident like how to put it together, you know.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, there are, putting things together. I don't know. I don't feel super confident about that sort of thing, but there are moments where like, yeah, I'll just get like how something needs to be done and be able to help somebody who's struggling with it. Sometimes like my mom will be struggling with something and like not like she'll need me to help her and I'll like go over to help and then I'll like see an easy way to fix the situation so that I don't have to help her anymore. Like I'll fix it up for her so she can do it alone. And I'm like, here, just do it like this. And she's like, oh, okay, I didn't think about that. Okay, yeah, there you go.
Oh, so
Yeah.
that's where the savior sleep is coming about play.
Right.
It's your type is so weird because it's like your type of self, but then because of the high sleep, you're like kind of leave me alone. It's weird.
Yeah.
Like, can you share a little bit about that like weird contradiction that's happening in you? You're like you want to serve the tribe, but you kind of don't because you have like the high sleep. Like, what's going on? How does it feel and how does it work?
How does it feel? How does it work? Yeah. Um, yeah, I kind of mentioned it a little earlier about like where it's like if somebody needs something, and like like if somebody is just coming to me with some ridiculous request and like like it doesn't make sense and like I don't feel any obligation to like, for like it's not like a reciprocal thing, then I'm like, yeah, no thanks, but like yeah, but if it just seems like a reasonable request to me, like it just makes sense, or it's something where I'm like, yeah, I better help them out because they helped me out with this other thing, whatever, then yeah, I feel like really like it would be extremely difficult to say no to that. Yeah. I mean, I had to I had to like um one day for work, like my I work for my dad and he was installing a car wash over I live in Idaho. He was installing a car wash over in Seattle, that area, and he had forgotten a part when he went over there. And so he just calls me up the next morning and he's like, "Hey, can you come drive this part over?" I'm like, fine. Because it's like I don't see a good way around that, So I'm like, okay, I'll go
How
drive at
how
the last second,
how long to
5
fly from
hours.
Idaho to Seattle?
Well, but I'm like farther north than most people, so it's not as far as it was like 5, 6 hours or something.
Oh, really? It's that close?
Yeah, it's there's the main highway through, so it's not too bad.
What's that city at the top right corner of Washington? I've been there before. I forgot the name of it though. Spokane? Spokane? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Do you
yeah.
do you, do you drive through that when you go to Seattle?
Yeah, you'd have to drive through to get to, yeah.
Okay, I see. Okay. Yeah. I was like, where's Idaho anyways? I was thinking,
I
like,
know everybody. They think it's like Iowa, and then they think it's in the Midwest. I'm like, no.
yeah, I was thinking somewhere in the middle, but I was like, where is it? Is it closer to the east or west? I wasn't quite sure, but
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't realize it's
Northwest.
neighbors to Washington.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I live in Vancouver, so I guess I'm not too far from you.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to the meetups that they had, David Shan, in like Seattle and stuff? Because they had like some.
No, I've never been to a meetup. I'm not. This is going to be really doing polite too. I just don't. I don't like traveling in general.
Okay,
And so to me, I'm like I want to like meet the people that I know from Discord and stuff, but I also get anxious in social situations. And so
right.
I have that natural anxiety where it makes me like not want to go. And then add to that the fact I don't like traveling. And I'm just like, no, I'll just stay here, So
That's
no,
fun.
I've never been to a meetup.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember when I went to their meetup, there was like this girl all the way from like New York. She flew all the way there just to like go to the
Mhm.
meetup. I'm like, what the heck?
I know.
That's
I
insane to me. I only went because it was like a 3 hour drive from Vancouver. And
Right, yeah.
yeah,
It's not that hard if you're that close, yeah.
yeah. And I have friends in Seattle, so I went to visit my friend and then I went to the meetup, brought my friend to the meetup too, and he got like partially type, which is cool, like
Oh,
so
that is cool. Yeah.
yeah, like yeah, and I met like a bunch of people that you probably know. Like I don't know if you know Leon in like the INTJ guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I met him there. He was like rapping to me. It's kind of random. Yeah, like I remember I was sitting there. He was like, "Hey man, you want to hear me rap?" I'm like, "Okay." It's like,
Those sleepless days, man.
yeah, I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, this is weird, but okay, whatever. Um, yeah. I did notice that like the consume, play, blast sleeps were the most extroverted. Not me. I'm play blast, but I wasn't the most extroverted in the group.
Yeah. Huh.
Because they're like self-above tribe, so they have no filter. They don't care.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
there's that element to it.
yeah, because I'm tribe above self, right? So I'm like just like looking around and stuff before like I go crackhead mode. But like even Dave was pretty energetic. He was stealing my food. Like he's yeah, I would lean over to talk to someone, and I'd look to my left. And I see Dave leaning over, taking my like tortilla to chips that came because I don't know they went to this like Mexican place, and he's like eating it. And
Oh my goodness. What a troll.
Yeah, yeah, he's definitely a troll and stuff. And then I just remember Shan was like coaching people about type. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. She like she has like a diagrams and stuff on a piece of paper.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was
Nice.
super cool. But yeah, they're really nice in person. So like
That's
especially
cool.
Shan. Shan is super nice in person. You know.
Yeah. I've heard
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, let's talk about your last animal, consume last, and your last animal is SF. So let's go over the different parts of your SF consume here. The first one is what I've heard a lot of EJs tell me is the biggest problem with the consume last is external self-awareness. Um, can you talk about seeing yourself from a third person perspective? So when you're dealing with a tribe, for example, do you know how you come across to the tribe? You know,
Mm.
it's also SF. So, it's like, you know, are you coming across as like someone that's cool and fun or like cringy, like, that kind of stuff, what's your take on that, personally?
Yeah, I would say I don't have that good of a cringe meter in general, because to me, certain things are not as cringy as for other people, and then other things that other people are, think are cool to me are really cringy. So it's, I don't know. I guess that's, FI subjective or whatever
Right.
for me. But um, hmm, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm like that great at like seeing myself like from a third person's perspective, as you put it. But like I don't think I'm like fully blind to it on one hand, because I guess it's a different way of looking at it. Because I feel like I can use my like TE and I as a to like, use the patterns, certain patterns to kind of like get a feel for like how people probably are seeing me. But it's more of a guess. It's not like a factual, like I know exactly in detail like how everybody sees me or whatever. It's more like just like a, using DE, paying attention to the tribe and how they interact with each other and how they respond to each other and how like this person, likes this person and they act this way. So if they act that way toward me in any way, then that means, so it's like kind of simulating a different way of like being able to see how people see me, but it's not necessarily going to be the clearest or most accurate way to do it.
Right, because your NI you're willing to take a leap, or make a guess
Right.
on how you come across. But I guess because it's also NI, it's like you have one guess of how you come across. Because like with NE, there's like multiple possibilities on how you can come across, but yours is like NI. It's feminine though,
Yeah.
so it's kind of flexible.
Well, it'll be subjective. Like, I mean, but like I think I'd say there's like more than one guess, but it's not very many. Like it'll usually I'll have like well this or that, like one
I
of
see.
these two.
I
Yeah.
see. That makes like more black and white, I guess, or A/B testing.
Yeah, a little bit, I
Yeah.
guess. So.
Okay. The other part of SF consume is consuming like actual SF stuff, like what's popular, what's cool.
Mhm.
What's been your experience been like with like consuming that sort of uh, thing?
Yeah, it's been I'm usually like late to the party on things. Admittedly, I like have the live under a rock syndrome a little bit. And like I'll usually like be like if some new popular movie comes out and it's like super big and everybody likes it, and for whatever reason it just didn't like fall into my OI box, or whatever, then I'll like end up not seeing it for like a year or two or three or four, after it's, been released. I'm like way late to the party. And then I'm like, oh wow, that was really cool and excited, but everybody's already moved on. So,
Yeah, that's that's sad. um, all right. Let me see here. What about consuming new for self? That's a part of consume. You said that you don't like traveling, so you got that part covered. But in general, do you find yourself avoiding like new experiences? You try to stay within the known.
yes, yeah, that's yeah, that was one of the big things when I got typed consume last, where I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that does make sense, you know? Like it wasn't like, oh, I'm not consume last. It was like yeah.
You're like guilty.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't yeah, I have a hard time going out and like wanting to go take in new experiences. There are some where if it falls in you know, like I used to play Celtic fiddle a lot. And I went to like fiddle camps and stuff, which was like totally outside of like what my previous experience had been, you know. But because it was so closely related to something that was already in my box, you know, I went and did that, and that was fun. And you know, not too scary. But yeah, aside from that, like I haven't really gone and, you know, gone searching for adventures or anything.
Gotcha. So you are energy dom. Um, the stereotype with energy dominant is you guys are goofy. Can you talk about like, do you see yourself as a goofball? You like to like, you know,
Yeah, at times, yeah.
yeah. Okay. And then where do you see the pitfalls of being energy dominant, like not being info dominant, like has that gotten you in trouble in the past? Being way too goofy as opposed to like, hey, we're trying to have a legit conversation here, trying to get the most accurate information, you know?
Yeah. Hmm. I don't know. It's because I don't feel like I'm like I don't feel like I purposely derail like this. Well, I guess it wouldn't be on purpose either way. But yeah, I don't feel like I derail info conversations that much. I'm sure I do, but like, you know, I don't think I'm that bad about it. It's more just that I will just like leave the conversation. I'll get bored and leave, you know. Um yeah, I would say I definitely the shortcomings of being energy dom is just not being good with all the information. I know I'm missing a lot of details whenever I'm like learning about something. Um and that can be kind of tough to try to like be confident in it when when you're like, "Oh, well, I probably missed a bunch of details." And then you go try telling somebody about it and you realize that in fact you did miss a bunch of details.
Right.
So,
I find that the energy dom that's FE is um more what's the word I'm looking for here? They're less info respectful than the TEs is what I
interesting.
find. Like with the FE. It's like with the people with the FE, they're trying to get an emotional response from you. So they're always trying to prod you until they get like something, you know.
Ah,
They're
okay.
looking for like a facial expression, like like a shock look or something, like it's there's like a prodding happening. Unless they're info dominant, because I noticed with the info dom, even if they have FE, they'll still obsess with information. So it's kind of interesting when that happens. So there's like a more extremeness, I guess you could
Hmm.
say, versus the TE. The TE people, I guess you have to be like Dave, you know, like a sleep last play consume to be like in that level of goofiness, right? Um,
Yeah.
so I noticed something interesting when I interview people that is consume last, but like high sleep versus like blast play, and like the biggest thing I noticed is like you guys are not as blasty as the blast plays. Um, Even though you're double activated blast, like I'm talking to you right now, and you're not really super blasty at all. Like you'll
Right.
blast, but it's more concise. It's like in like bursts, like short bursts,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that with yourself? It's like you are blasting, but it's like because you have high sleep, I guess, so you've thought it out. So you give the answer as like concise as possible. I don't know if
Hmm.
that's true or not. How do you personally experience that?
Yeah. I've noticed that like with um like being hanging out in Discord, in the voice chats, like I'll notice like people make comments, well, you're not blasting very much, and I'm like, well, you didn't just notice that 5 times that I came off mute just to say one thing to like help clarify something or send somebody in the right direction, like you didn't notice like that was all blast. It was just very, very short bits
Right.
of blast,
But it's
very concise.
yes, yes. I guess that's better because then with the high play, there's like a lot of run-on sentence or a lot of like looping around, instead of getting to the
Yeah.
point. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess that makes sense. Blast sleep, right? Because like the point of blast and sleep is to organize and be as like OI as possible. So it makes sense. Your blast is like, here you go. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't want to expand on it. It's already narrowed down.
yeah, exactly. Um, let's talk about you being double masculine. So you are kinesthetic in audio. Let's start with the kinesthetic part first. Do you find yourself like you pick up sports easily, or like when you work, like I don't know if you work out or not, but like with weights, or like what's
Hmm.
your experience been like with like physical movements and whatnot?
Uh, I've never been good with sports. I'm not, it's not that I'm like that bad at them on one hand. I just never enjoyed like doing sports, so I didn't get the experience to ever really be good at it, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, but it wasn't too bad either. I remember there was one time, my brother was like doing softball, and so we had like a big bucket of softballs. And one day I just went out in the yard and grabbed a bat, grabbed the bucket full, and I just started picking up the balls, throwing them in the air, and trying to hit them, and see how many in a row I could do. And I got in a flow, and I just kept hitting them, and you could hear the ping off the bat. And so my dad, you know, he could hear the pinging, just like the consistent ping, ping, ping. And he was like, "Wait, that was you?" I was like, "Yeah, I just was messing around and got in a flow." They weren't going very far. It wasn't like it was anything amazing. It was just like, okay, I got a rhythm going, and
So you were the
picked
batter?
it up. Yeah, I was
Oh.
throwing the balls into the air and hitting them.
Oh, okay. I thought someone was like, I was wondering, I'm like, are you pitching or are you batting? So, okay, great. Um, so I guess you're a natural at this if you really tried.
Yeah, if I tried, maybe I'd be decent, but
Yeah. Who knows the untapped potential you're leaving on the table by not exploring that. Um, what about being audio? So you're kinesthetic in audio, right?
Mhm.
Are you good with music, sound, vibrations?
A little bit. I don't think I'm like there are a lot of people out there that are just like super like naturals. I wouldn't say I'm like at the super like top end or anything, but I did, like I said, I played Celtic fiddle for a long time, and um I was somewhat natural at that, I'd say. I always had like a fairly decent like internal metronome, Um and let's see. Yeah, I don't know. Like I relate a little bit to like the how David Shen described like the double masculine, like kind of like wanting to like sort of like make the rhythm, Um like you have like this kind of internal like push that you feel to like, create the rhythm. So yeah, that I kind of do relate to. Um I think that that helped me a lot with my playing fiddle and other music stuff.
I think they like to use like drummers as like the ultimate double masculine
Yeah.
like instrument,
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause you're smashing like drums.
Yeah. I didn't ever play like a normal drum set. I did play a drum in a bagpipe band,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, it's called the flourishing tenor drum, and you actually spin the mallets when you play. So it's actually like one of the most like feminine looking kind of drumming you can do.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So you play the Celtic flute, you said? Or
fiddle,
fiddle, sorry.
violin.
Oh, it's a violin.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like this, but okay.
Yeah.
Um, is Celtic. Why did you pick that specific instrument, as opposed to something else? Because that's kind of like a very specific kind of instrument, like outside of the norm. I mean.
Yeah. This is kind of a weird story. Um, I just I saw like a TV special, like a concert thing. It was like a Celine Dion concert. I was like 6 year old. I think I was around 6 years old at the time. and she had a young violinist on to play this particular solo in one of the songs. And I just like, I remember seeing that moment and just thinking it was so amazing and like how cool the violin was. I'm like, I don't know, it just like kind of was like enchanted with that. And then years later, like I never like asked my parents about like could I learn violin or anything, because I just like it didn't even seem like a real possibility to me. Um, and then years later, my best friend, um, she'd been learning like old time fiddle since she was 6, funny enough. And but we weren't like, I wasn't friends with her at the time. We'd moved in later. Anyway, so she did a fiddle thing for a talent show or something. And then when like I saw my best friend playing this instrument, I realized, oh duh, I could do that too. Like I don't know why. I didn't think I could. I guess like DI last issues. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But like it was just like this dumb moment of like, oh, I could totally do that too. And then so I finally asked my parents about it, and they got me a violin for Christmas. So that's pretty much like the whole story.
Ah, nice. So I guess your FI locked into that Celine Dion concert playing the
Yeah. Yeah.
violin. All right. Let's talk about your FI. This is gonna be the last part for the interview, which is like the
Okay.
hardest part, obviously, is the FI. Um, so you have high sleep. Do you get triggered when you're in sleep because it's touching your FI? You know, FI your triggering function. But so you're processing yourself, like internally, your emotions and stuff. Do you get triggered when you're in that world, you know, especially as an EJ?
I guess when you say triggered, like, do you just mean like, and somehow in some way like negatively affected, like emotionally?
Yeah, like because you're leading with like feminine functions. So
Hmm.
your FI is feminine. So when you get triggered, it's gonna look different from me. I have masculine SI. So when I get triggered, I get angry, right?
Okay.
Or pissed off. But yours is feminine. So do you like cry, or do you get like really sad? Like I don't know like what happens with that feminine FI when it gets like triggered as a result of, you know, when you're processing it and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I mean sometimes, yeah, well, it'll be like depressive processing.
Yeah.
But I mean thankfully the good thing to being feminine is it changes, you know, it doesn't get stuck.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's been stuck a little bit before, but not like, you know, not as difficult to move as like the masculine FI, but yeah, so yeah, sometimes it's a little, I guess, triggering. But I don't think it's necessarily that like, I don't think it's that much of a trigger, you know?
Do you also feel like you can change your identity because it's feminine FI? Because I remember watching like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who has feminine FI, ENTJ also. And for him, he's like, you can choose who you want to be. That's kind of like his message, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so with feminine FI, do you feel like you can choose your identity? You know, you're not like stuck, you know, because it's not masculine, right? You're not stuck in this one identity. You can be like whoever you want to be, essentially.
Right.
Do you relate with that?
A little bit. Yeah. Okay. I do think that for the most part, that is kind of how like I just see things like growing up and whatever, like just kind of like, well, yeah, you can choose to do things differently. Kind of like how I was saying earlier about like updating my seeing the NF sleep um double phone in as being more just like kind of updating my moral compass or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, I can, you know, change myself a little bit and be different. It's not going to be like a huge overnight change or anything, but you know, a little bit, little course correcting here and there, you know. Um, yeah. So I guess overall I could agree with that.
Gotcha. All right. And then the last part I want to talk about with like feminine FI is, do you find like um you have trouble with authenticity, because it's like changing all the time, with like, because it's feminine, like, I mean, I don't know if you get accused of like being inauthentic, but um I think with feminine FI, your identity does change, so does your values. So, like, what's your take with like authenticity and stuff from your personal experience?
Um, hmm. I know I try really hard to be authentic. That was one thing that, for example, when I got typed as blast play and stuff initially, I tried to just, not try to play into it. I probably did a little bit, unless on a subconscious level, but like that was something I remember telling myself was like, okay, like no matter whatever the type says, I'm just going to act how I want to be anyways. And whether that lines up with a type doesn't really matter. If anything, that's just going to help redefine the type, you know? So I don't know. I don't like, to me, that's also part of like the integrity thing, is like being all like genuine, authentic, and things like that. And I think that, yeah, sure, there's probably times there, yeah, there definitely is times where I'll struggle with it, because if it's something that in the moment is going against the group's, you know, uh, whether the group I'm in at the time likes that thing or not or whatever, that's going to be like, I'm going to have a harder time speaking up about like, hey, I disagree with that. But um yeah, I don't know. I also just see that as like getting along. You don't have to create a fight just because you don't agree with something. You can just disagree and then, you know, do your own thing later. But yeah, I don't know. I think yes, there are times where it can be kind of difficult to be authentic because of that. Um, but it's still like a value, you know.
All right, Amanda. So we'll wrap up the interview here. So thanks for coming out and sharing more about yourself. I know as an EJ, this is not easy. So I do appreciate you doing this. Usually like when I interview people, like EJs get the most scared as well as the IPs. So so yeah, lots of appreciation for you. I think that's very brave that you did that. So thanks for coming out, and we'll see you around the group.
Mhm. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye.